All right, so this was PhotoWings, and today's event is called Photo Stories Documenting Abuse. This is incredibly important and difficult work that the photographers who are with us today have been doing. And we have today David Diaz Arcos from Ecuador. We have Viviana Peretti, who's an Italian photographer based in Colombia at the moment, and Shirin Abedi, an Iranian photographer who is based in Germany, in Hanover, Germany. And so the first photographer who will tell us the story that he's been working on is David Diaz Arcos, and we're delighted that you're with us, David. You're from Ecuador, and you will present us your project called Bird's Nest, telling the stories of young adolescent women who are survivors of sexual exploitation. You're welcome to share your screen and tell us about this, David.
Hi everyone. Thank you, VII Community, for the opportunity to speak about for this work. I believe it is essential that this story be made visible, the work that organizations do in Ecuador to fight for human rights and be echoed around the world. Well, my name is David Diaz Arcos. I am visual storyteller and photojournalist based in Ecuador. My work focuses on human rights, territory, and education through image workshop for vulnerable populations and communities. I am a member of Diversified Photo, the Everyday Projects, and VII Community. I also contributor for Bloomberg News, Reuters, and some United Nations agencies. Well, I won't share my screen. Okay, this project is called Bird Nest. It's named in honor of the safe house that is a home for women who survived human trafficking for sexual exploitations. For context, there are 2.5 million people who are victims of the crime of human trafficking. It is estimated that for every identified victims, there are 20 more unidentified victims, being the third most profitable illicit business after drugs and arms trafficking. Several organization trafficking and exploitation networks operates in Ecuador, including the largest and most dangerous one known as El Tren de Aragua. Several teenage women have been rescued from this cartel. Before we begin, I'd like to share some images that are not part of the series, but are integral to the story's development. My involvement in these stories began with an assignment for the United Nations High Commissioner. His visit to Ecuador in January 2023, prompted by the serious allegation of human rights violations, is a key part of this story. During his visit, the High Commissioner visited vulnerable communities and populations, including the Alas de Colibri Foundation. And Safe House Protection, House of the Alas de Colibri Foundation. This safe house, that's the code name that the organization give it. The call has is a nest That's where the project titles come from, Bird Nest. And after that first approach, I believe that was a story that is not talking about much in Ecuador. There are not investigative or journalist work, much less photograph, that address the issues of trafficking for sexual exploitation, specifically in adolescents. I went to the organization and asked them to do the photographic work about adolescent girls. The objective of the report was to show how teenage women live inside the safe house and what activities they carry out to recover physically and emotionally so that they have a normal life. Once we reach an agreement with the organization to carry out the report, the fear obstacle came about how to approach this woman, a woman who had been violently raped and abused by males. It's necessary to mention that the people who rehabilitate this woman psychically and psychologically are the other women. As their trauma was inflicted by men, further contact with them before starting their healing process called impossible will be re-victimizing for the survivors. They have a trauma marked by men's signs. They have been to ones or have violated them. Before I could start the project, I needed to get the woman to know me and be able to create a bond. Before photographing them, I used a methodology that I have already applied in previous work with population in vulnerable situations. The best way to get closer is through educational workshops, painting, photography, or craft workshops. That's when we propose carpentry workshops, and we also did kite making workshops. And this was the most crucial activity. Through these workshops, we were able to get to know each other. I wanted them to know beyond the photographer, but as person, and moreover, as a person who served for them. And I also wanted to know their serious and what's important to this without the camera. As they are women who have experienced a situation of violence, I did not want to be invasive by putting a camera in front of them without them first knowing who I am as a person. These images are important. The photographic series will not exist without these workshops. After these workshops, I start photographing them, and that's how the series begin. There are other safe houses that the state runs, but they are for adult women who are victims of violence. So Alas de Colibri Foundation is housed in the only private house that helps this woman in Ecuador. I spent approximately a month with the girls, but not every day. There were certain times when I could visit the house and accompany them in their daily activities and some other activities that were outside the safe house. Most of the images that remained in the final edition of the project were taken during the last 2 visits. It wasn't until that moment that they felt comfortable with my presence. we had a conversation about movies or music. In the end, they were so uncomfortable with the camera that they asked me to take photos of their faces so they could have this memory between them. Another barrier I had to think about when photographing was no show their faces, which cannot be recognized. To this, a look at some reference and results available. At the same time, I wanted word image. I didn't want to emphasize a narrative that over victims, the girls, reader, waited to show how they survived the trauma. Hence, the term survivors of the crime of trafficking, not victims. This helps not to reinforce the stereotype and empowers them. And well, it is an every day for the girls inside the safe house. It starts early at 6:30 a.m. They tidy up the ray, which they share with the roommates. Then they have a breakfast and divide the housework into tasks such washing dish, cleaning, and then at 8 a.m. they attend the school classes. Some resume their studies, another learn reading or grading in class, and then come lunch times. After work, they have free time, which they use to watch television, listen to music, or do any other activity they want to do until the afternoon, where they attend painting, theater, music workshops, or session with a psychologist or medical session. The safety of the girls is paramount since many of them have the threats or are witness in critical case of certain crimes. Despite this, the idea of the safe house is that it works. Looks and feels like a house that is comfortable, and where even through the house has security restriction, such as special doors or bars, so that no one can enter or leave. And that is why the organization tries to make it feel like a home, not a prison. The house has a maximum capacity of 50 women, and the maximum time, depending on each case, is 1 year. In a year or less, the organization try to resolve here the situations and send her homes once it is safe. When the house is full, there is not space, the organization must send them to other state house, such as shelters or other places and suitable for the rehabilitations and care of the girls, which is another big problem. I need to work on the series. The bond we both create was genuine, and recently one of the organization workers told me the girls asked when I returned to do the workshops again. Having achieved that bond with them made me feel satisfied with the series. Thank you también for Mónica Allende, help me find the image. although the photographic series is closed in the first chapter, this was only a teeny part of the history. I think the topic is extensive and many histories exist and need to be told around this problem and the resilience of not only the survivors, but those who dedicate their lives to their healing and safety. It's all. Thank you.
David, thank you so much for telling us the story. Such a sensitive story, and you brought such a thoughtful approach to this. It's amazing. Wonderful job. Thank you for telling us all about it. And everyone, if you have questions to David, you're welcome to leave them in the Q&A box, and he will answer. And for everyone, all of the photographers, the same. So when you have questions, just put them in the box, and everyone will answer. Whatever is left, I will go through that at the end of this presentation. So thank you so much, David. That was just incredibly important work. Okay, so we'll go next to Viviana, and Viviana is an Italian photographer. Once again, she is based in Colombia right now, and she will discuss her series, Searching for Lost Lives, sharing a light on the people who forcibly disappeared in Colombia.
Thanks. Hi to everyone. Thanks to VII Academy and PhotoWings for this opportunity. I go to share my screen. And I have this presentation. So yes, my project, Searching for Lost Life, project about forced disappearance, the crime of forced disappearance in Colombia. And according to the Colombian Search Unit for Missing People, during the last 60 years, more than 100,000 people were disappeared in the country, and this respond to a low-intensity war about land control, illicit crops, and also mega projects like tourism, agribusiness, and mining. The crime of forced disappearance, they say that it's the perfect crime. There is not a body, so there is not a victimizer. During the last year in Colombia, there is a big effort from public and private institution and NGO to find the missing people. But it's a very complex job. The geography in Colombia is complicated, and also most of these people were disappeared 20, 30 years ago. So it's a very complex situation to find them. Let's see if the slideshow start. And the project was done using analog cameras. And most of the pictures that you will see are shot with an Olga, so a toy camera, a plastic camera. There are a lot before the creation of the Colombian Search Unit for Missing People. The family of the missing people were the ones that were looking for their relatives. So there were a lot of public protest and march where they have this gallery of the memory where they show the photograph of their relatives that they were missing. This is the case, of this picture that was shot during a public protest in Bogota. and show the image of Benjamin Marin Lizarazo, that was a social leader in the Casanare region on the border with Venezuela. Benjamin was disappeared in 2001, and until now his whereabouts is unknown. This is an ossuary in La Dolorosa Cemetery in Puerto Berrio. Puerto Berrio is a city in the Antioquia region, and so a lot of missing people at the moment are in the cemetery. They calculate that around or more than 30,000 people are buried illegally in a public and private cemetery in Colombia, and most of them are in a mass grave, but a lot of them were just, dumped in ossari, like this one, where it's a very complex, carry out an identification process and be able to, give back the remains of this person to their family. This is a commission in San Juanito. San Juanito is a small village 5 hours from Bogota. And in this case, the Colombian search unit were looking for the body of Gerardo Angulo. Gerardo Angulo was an old man that were kidnapped together with his wife, Doña Carmenza, by the guerrilla, by the lefty FARC guerrilla in 2000. And in 2021, the body of Doña Carmenza was found in this place. And in 2023, the commission tried to find also the body of Gerardo, but they were unable to locate him. And the couple was kidnapped by the guerrilla and then shot by the guerrilla a few months later during the kidnapping. She's Doña Ligia. His son Roberto was killed and disappeared by the paramilitary in Antioquia. This is one altar in the house of Luz Marina Ace. Luz Marina Ace, we can see her photograph here, was the partner of Eduardo Lofner. Eduardo was a unionist in Bogota, and he was disappeared, and until now his whereabouts is unknown. And many family, many relatives of the disappeared have altars in their house, where generally they have the photograph of the missing person, and then a few objects that belongs to him or her. In this case, we can see the diary of Eduardo and coffee beans. Luz Marina told me that, he was a lover of coffee, of Colombia coffee, so she always keeps on the altar coffee beans for him. Is Don Dario Morales, and is the father of Oscar Alexander Morales. He carried the picture of his son during a search for him in El Copey Alternative Cemetery in the north of Colombia. Oscar Alexander was one of the many victims of extrajudicial crime, what's in Colombia is called falsos positivos. During years, the law enforcement, the military, offer jobs to people, to young boys, offer jobs in other regions. They generally, visited a shanty town in big cities, so in Bogota, in Medellin, making this kind of offer. and they used to bring this young person to other regions, shoot them, and then present to authority them as a guerrilla shot during confrontation with the army. Until now, the numbers say that more than 6,000 people were victim of this kind of crime, and Oscar Alexander was one of them. His body was finally found in 2022 in this place, in this cemetery in the north of Colombia. He was from Bogota. And but only in 2024 the authorities were able to identify his body and return his body to his family. She's Sandra Cristina. She's also, a relative of a missing person. In this case, Sandra is looking for his brother, Ettore Emilio, that was also killed in Medellin and found in the Medellin River. The authorities were unable to identify him after his death, and they buried him as a person without identity in a cemetery in Medellin. And until now, Sandra Cristina attended 5 exhumations in this place, in this cemetery, called El Universal Cemetery in Medellin. But she was unable, authorities were unable to find the body of Ettore and return the body to his sister. The name of people scratched on the wall of in this cemetery. Many people victim of disappearance were buried during the last decades in anonymous and illegal mass graves. And this is the work of a Colombian artist, Beatriz Gonzalez, and she did this kind of installation in an old cemetery in Bogota, painting on the the wall of this ossuary, these kind of images of people carrying the body of dead from Beatriz Gonzalez. Is called Auras Anonymous.
Okay, now the picture started to change. Viviana.
Some people yeah. It's okay? Yeah? There is some problem? Let me know.
Just lagging a little bit, but now it shows the picture that you were talking about. Okay.
So this one is okay. We already talked about this. It's okay.
Yes, you just spoke about this one. Okay.
Okay. So let me see if I can remove this from here, and we can go maybe better in this way. Are you watching? It's full screen. It's okay, the picture?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So these are, as I say, that these are the relative of missing people protesting in front of the Palace of Justice in Bogota. The Palace of Justice was in 1985, was taken by guerrilla people, and then the army just rocketed the palace. There was a fire that completely destroyed the palace, and more than 100 people died, and there were many people that were rescued alive from the palace and then just disappeared. This is, as I say, the family and the member of they create association of victims, and in this case, we are is a protest that every year a member of the Union Patriotic Party do in several cities of Colombia. In this case, we are in Bogota, and the Union Party was a leftist party. Its members during the year were just disappeared or killed by, most of the time, by military, paramilitary, and until now, it's the numbers say that at least 6,000 people, members of the party, were killed during the year. This is a mural, a photo mural on a wall in Popayan, a city in the south of Colombia. And these are the remains of a person exhumated in El Universal Cemetery in Medellin, and ready to be transported to the an Institute of Forensic Medicine for identification. These are the hands of relatives and the picture of missing people, disappeared people in Madres de la Candelaria headquarters in Medellin. Madres de la Candelaria is an association created in 1999 in Medellin in response to the many disappeared that were in the city and in the region. And the mother, the wife, the daughters of the victims meet every Friday in the city center of Medellin, asking for justice and asking for truth. This is only Friday in the shanty town of Ciudad Bolívar in Bogota. As I said before, from many shanty towns around the country is where the army recruited young people with job offers and then transported them to other regions and killed them and presented them as a member of the guerrilla shot dead during confrontation with the army. A detail of a statue in the Center for Memory, Peace and Reconciliation in Bogota. And this is the forest of San Juanito, the region, the city that we were talking about before. And this is people try to locate it, the body of Don Gerardo in 2023. A sweater in Medellin, in the Comuna 13, that it's also, you know, one of the most violent neighbor in the city, and in this neighbor there were during the years many people that were disappeared. And this is Calle 6 in 6th Avenue in Bogota, and this is just on the border of Las Cruces. That was also one of the, you know, the young people were disappeared by the army. And that's it. So if you have a question, I will be happy to answer them later on.
Thank you so much. Viviana, this is also an incredibly important project like in David's, and your approach is very interesting with the Holga that gives it this strange and mysterious angle, and you really want to go in that direction from a bit of a different point of view rather than just straightforward photojournalism. So I think it's an interesting decision that you made. I like that. So thank you so much. And yes, if you have any questions, dear participants, you're welcome to put them in the Q&A box. As I'm seeing, there are already 2 questions, one for David and one comment for you, Viviana. And also in the chat, there was a question for you, Viviana, not in the Q&A, but in the chat. So yes, you can both check both boxes and see if you feel like answering them. And whatever is unanswered, I will leave for the ending. And I will present now Shirin Abedi, who is a wonderful Iranian photographer. She grew up and lives in Hanover, Germany, and she will speak to you about her project called Invisible Students, which investigates the long-term effects of school bullying in Germany. Okay, so go ahead, Shirin. Where are
Okay. Hi, everyone. And I'm already with my mind in the projects of David and Viviana, but now I need to focus. Let me first start sharing my screen. Okay, do you see my screen? Okay. So first of all, I'd like to also acknowledge something else because I'm also German. And right now we're seeing how Germany is complicit again in another plausible genocide in Palestine. And it's like my head is all the time full of questions, and it's hard for me to also focus on other works while there is something so huge happening in front of us. But I think in my project, there was also this question of how can we treat the other and how can we tolerate differences between each other. So maybe it's my attempt of understanding humanity and the school system. My work started in 2021, and I like to think still that it's ongoing, but I haven't added many pictures yet to the work since I graduated from university in 2021. Only 2 more pictures were added. And I think, like, I will come to that later. I will read out the text of the story first. 1 of 4 students does not feel safe at school in Germany. A total of 60% experience isolation, teasing, or even physical violence by following their obligation to attend school, a place that is a mirror of our society. Every one of us has seen bullying as a witness, perpetrator, or a victim. Bullying means repeated degrading actions over a period of time on a regular basis. It mostly exists in strict hierarchical structures that are not easy to break, and its participants are obligated to get by the situation. Victims of school bullying deal with anxiety, depression, low self-worth, and trust issues even many years after their graduation. And at the beginning of the work, my main question was, are children evil, and is in every one of us humans a sadist? But later the work let me come to more nuanced questions, like how do we treat the other? How are discrimination and xenophobia tolerated in our society and carried also through each generation? And how does it affect the adulthood and the society? So the people with whom I work together, I traveled like over 7,000 kilometers through Germany and portrayed 7 people. And they are the ones that are able to speak about the trauma they experienced. Most of them did some therapy, or they also used our collaboration, kind of a last therapeutical act, to talk about it, deal with it, go to the places together. So my work consists of places that have an emotional meaning, like This Way to School for Lina, And also I need to add that some people's names, they were anonymized, like Lina's name, because their families might not really know what they experience, or also they don't want to be confronted so much with their past and the present. And Lina was bullied from 7th to 9th grade. And my work also includes all school forms in Germany, from primary school to high school to this upper school. And we have like different school forms. And it was important for me to say it happens everywhere, and it can happen also to anyone. There is no order who is affected by bullying in the end. It's quite random, I think. So she was bullied in middle school from 7th to 9th grade. And after she broke up with her then boyfriend, other classmates started to spread rumors, and they were hitting her head. And let me check. For instance, in this place, this is on her schoolyard. She said on winter times when there was lots of snow, they would push her down the hill, and then she would like need to come up again, and it would hurt, and it was cold, and also mentally degrading. And they would also hit her head and say a hit on your head will increase your ability to think, or anything she did, she said, was kind of wrong in that time. And what shocked me also the most was that she experienced also sexual harassment on a school party or in a party with classmates. And later, people at school spread the rumors that she was raped, and also she was the victim of that act, and she was not raped though. People were slut-shaming her for having become a victim. This is Wolfgang Vogel. He experienced violence already at home with his stepmother, and later he thought that violence is a natural part of life. And when he went to school, he was a very insecure kid, and the children, they started mocking at him, and it went on for 10 years of his education. And one of the peaks of his bullying was, so Wolfgang grew up in the former GDR, East Germany, and people either had to be a part of the socialist movement, or they could also not be part if they were part of the church. So for him, it was also a place of refuge to be Christian and part of the church. And I don't know actually if they have a correlation, but when he was 15, or one of the peaks of his bullying was when classmates tried to baptize him in the school toilet. And since the memories are very fragmentary because people deal with their trauma, I also have used the fragmentary visual language for that. But this is like the exact school toilet. This is Hannes. We changed also his name. He was bullied in primary school, and he said that he was a very vulnerable child, and because the situation is at home, it was not very good. So he was really easily starting to cry, and maybe that was his weak point, that other children started to tease him, and they would also hit him, take down his pants. But one of the traumas that he shared with me, that we also included in the photography, was when he was 10, he went to a children's birthday party, and one of the kids said, when the parents left the room, let's feed Hannes with fish food. So they would hold his arms and legs, and one would hold his mouth open and put fish food in his mouth. And we tried to communicate that story with this portrait. And I need to, like, as a photographer, add that it was a huge amount of trust that this person gave me to dive into a traumatic experience, and the smell of fish food is quite intense, but I was allowed to like put it everywhere in his face and work with him. And for him also later, he said it was a nice thing that we did as a therapeutic way to deal with the trauma outside of his therapy. This is the school of Alexandra. Alexandra, she was bullied by her best friends when she was in 5th and 6th grade. And her way of bullying was very nuanced, like this talking behind somebody, but letting her know that she's not worth enough and she's not welcome some places. So she had a whole folder of little letters that her friends then wrote, and they were really mean letters. They were placed usually under her chair or table where she sat, so she could find them and read them and be hurt by them. And she was still invited to all the parties or playing football together. And this gym photo, this is because also the whole class joined the bullying at one moment. And she described an incident where everybody after the basketball match was coming to her and asked her why she's so stupid. And she was just 12 years old back then. And the way her bullying ended was that she decided to find new friends, actually. And she said that still she has many insecurities. She has friends, she has a good education now, and she's part of the society. But whenever she's about to present something, this very hurt child in her speaks to her and says, no, you are unable of doing anything. And she describes that she came as a very strong and self-confident kid to that class, and then the bullying broke that part of her. This is Ella, and Ella was also bullied in the upper high school, I think, in Hanover, so close to where I am. And Ella, we changed her name, but she was also okay with showing her portrait. She said that she experienced slut shaming and sexual violence in her education, and right now she also put that into her work to help children with sexual education. And from her, I learned also that she described that she was a very loud child, and always the surrounding of her that didn't really know how to deal with that. They would tell her, you should change, you're too loud, you're too much. And also she was just herself all the time. Now we are seeing the desk of Alexander Schütte as a trigger warning. It's also about death, but yeah. So Alexander, he was bullied his whole education from primary school till he was 18. And later he committed suicide at school. But a few days after his 18th birthday, he jumped out of the window of his school. And people mocked on him for different things, and the violence he experienced, it was shocking. So they would sometimes with this plant, it's I think nettle, and they would free his back, like take off the shirt, hold him, and leash him with that. So, and one day his grandfather found out about it. They went to school, reported that, but the school couldn't do anything, so it kept going on. And his father, like this is Alexander's room, and you can see the threads of what he did in his free time, probably on the wall to let go of the energy inside of him. And his father said to me, Alexander could be saved actually if he had done therapy. And it's interesting for me because I had these harsh questions when I started the work, and I thought bullying is the reason why children kill themselves. But this father who lost his son through bullying, he said, like, no, there are more nuances than what you think, and it's the depression as an effect of the bullying. But of course, it has a big role how we treat each other. And this is the place where he was found. This is Fatih Khan. Fatih was a really smart kid, and he came to a very white class. So he changed his school in primary school, and the class was mostly with white kids, and it started a lot with racism. And he said on the first day of school, all the kids came to him and said, "You're the new kid," and pointed at him and said, like, "Ah, disgusting." And on that day, this 8-year-old kid knew it's gonna be a rough time. And so it was. And next to physical violence, it was also part of the parents that they protected the children that did the bullying. So they would call each other in the afternoon and say, like, no, my kid didn't do anything, and just update themselves. So if the teacher asked the parents, they would have to cover up. And one of the things that shocked me too was that in 4th grade in Germany, your teachers suggest you the upper education. So you can either go to the gymnasium and do your finish school and then go to university, or you finish school after 10 years or 9 years. And then his teacher, despite the good grades, they would say, like, no, you're not good enough. You should go to the lowest education system. And now he's doing his PhD at Princeton University with a scholarship. And we're about to get to the end. So this is the school path of Katharina Greta. She went to school in Stuttgart, and she was also experiencing bullying for 10 years of her whole education. And it was everything, she said, like from physical violence to laughing at her, mocking at her. A classmate tried to push her head down the swimming pool when they were having swimming classes. That led to her never ever swimming with her head underwater, and that led to neck pain in adulthood. And then she started to like trying to fix those traumas. But actually, she started to memorize the school bullying when her son was about to going to school, like 8 years ago or so. And then she realized there are some issues that she needs to deal with. And she started to write 2 books about the school bullying. And now she's teaching workshops at schools to prevent bullying. Thank you for listening and watching.
Thank you so much, Shirin. This is so important, and it just, it's that theme, that story that speaks to extremely wide audience. So many people, pretty much every one of us, who goes to school, we're worried about it, or our children. I have 2 children here in Germany in the school, and we're always, worried that, will they find friends? Will they do well? Will other kids treat them well? It's a constant worry, and of course for the kids even more than parents. So thank you for doing this story. I think it reveals a lot, and yeah, I bet there are so many nuances to this that just are that need to be gone through. People need to know more about this. So thank you for doing this story. Okay. So let's go through some questions, I guess. There's some comments for you too in the chat and for everyone. I'll go from the beginning. We had a question for David from Anastas Tarpanov. So he said, David, you shared some info, but did you have more obstacles as a man? And do you think such a story should be told by a man in general? Probably as opposed to a woman, he means. So what do you think, David?
Okay, first off, thank you, Joe, for your questions. I think that gender roles are inevitable woven into this narrative, since the violence behind these women's stories begins and ends with male perpetrators. Like I said, the most important obstacle to overcome in this series was to create a bond with the woman more than as a man, as a person. I think that when it comes to who should be feeling the history, I understand who maybe a woman's gaze could give different results to the image, but I don't see myself as a man covering a woman history, but as a human being who sees the need to cover a problem that is not talking about nearly enough in our society. I can't say whether it's better for a woman to cover this type of histories, but I can say that the need for these stories to be told is bigger than the gender or identification of the person covering them.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. I think it's a great answer because, you know, as documentarians, journalists, photographers, we need to be bigger than that. And when we do our job, it's stories that all stories are important, and everyone as a professional has the right to do them. And the way you did your story was so attentive, sensitive, and careful. And you took your time. You even taught workshops to build these relationships. That doesn't happen often at all. And there's it's just a great way of working on this. So, and it really does not matter what gender you are, as long as you are sensitive and careful the way you have been with your story. Thank you for your answer. And okay, so there's a question here to Viviana in the chat. Viviana, so Vivian Rakutai Rivoni asked it. Viviana, weren't you afraid? Were there threats against you for taking these photos?
No, not at all. I think the difficult part of the project was like to get access. And also to build the trust, talking about trust as, in the case of the project, and trust with the family, with the relatives of the missing people. I think that took me, a lot of time, a lot of work, meeting with them, gathering, taking part in their protest and march, asking for justice and truth. And then the other hard part of the project, it's that, as I say, the geography in Colombia is very complex, and disappeared people are all around the country. So, in the forest, in the river, in place where it's very difficult to, to get there. It takes a long time. You have to walk a lot. Most of the time you cannot get there with, by car. So you have just to, walk and walk with your gear. And then, the difficulty of sometimes the information about a place where there should be, the remains of people, they are not, very precise, and so it became still more difficult. And as I said, most of these people were disappeared 20, 30 years ago. So the geography changed a lot, the landscape changed, and also people that give you information, they are not still, really sure about what they say and what they remember about what's happened 20 or 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much for this answer. And yeah, I think you approached your project with a lot of courage yeah, and so it's wonderful that you actually took the time to do it so deeply with every participant, with all the people who you spend time with. Thank you. Okay, and then we have words and comments, lovely words about your work, Shirin, and a comment from Ted Ostrovsky about privacy rights. Then also a note for Shirin about a movie on the subject, Bully, originally titled The Bully Project. So you can take a look at that, Shirin. And yeah, I suppose I have a question to Shirin then related to her project. How did it go for you after 2021? Were you able to show it, to exhibit it anywhere, or to publish it? And how wide do you think you're able to share it with the audience?
So that's a good question. So in 2021, I did a book dummy for the work, but it didn't feel finished yet. So I basically never showed it anywhere, but on portfolio reviews. And this year, for the first time at the open mic event in Al with VII, I showed it to a wider audience for the first time. And I think with the feedback that people like the work, or that it adds some value to them, through that I opened more and showed it, but it hasn't been published yet anywhere. And also in my mind, there was always, I need to make it more diverse, because we mostly see quite ordinary people, and maybe that's also a strength of the work, that we see very ordinary people. But I'd like also to bring the diversity of the society into the visual language of my work, like more BIPOC person, fat person, thin person, old person, younger person, and have a diversity in my protagonists.
Mm-hmm. So you think you want to continue working on it before you start publishing it or exhibiting it wider?
Probably, but I wouldn't say no now also to publications and exhibitions, because if I wanted to actively do it, I would have done more pictures in the past 3 years, probably. So that's like an inner challenge of me, what my subconscious is telling me and what I tell people that I want to do.
Yes. Okay.
And what I wanted to add is also the expression mental hygiene, because I came across when I worked on that work about it. And I think it's very important also to take care of ourselves when we do this work. So when I started the project in 2020, I also started a therapy, and it's lucky that in Germany we have like the health insurance pays for therapy, but while I was working on that, I knew I would go to like really deep places, and I didn't want to do it alone. So I had one person that I met once a week and talked about everything, about my dreams, about my own traumas. And I found it really good to have a safety net while doing work that might be challenging for ourselves.
Yes, yes. It's great that you did that for yourself as well, so that you can go through this in a healthy way for yourself as well. Yeah. Okay, and I wanted to also ask Viviana and David about your plans for showcasing this project books, exhibitions? What plans do you have?
If I go first, right? Well, I'm back in Colombia with a grant by the Italian Minister of Culture to keep working on the project. So I will be here, the next 6-7 months, and then, wherever I can. I would like to see it, exhibit. Last year, the project was, this year the project was a finalista the Aftermath grant. So, I'm still applying for grant in order to, keep working on it. And then, yes, the goal is one day to publish a book. But for now, I just want to keep shooting.
Okay, great to know. And what about you, David? What are you thinking? What future plans?
This is the first chapters, and I think the topic is extensive and many stories exist and need to be told around this problem and the resilience of not only the survivors, but those who dedicate their lives to their healing and saving. And I don't know, maybe after I will work in this project.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great to know. So maybe you will continue. Yeah, thank you so much. So it seems all of you are ready to continue these projects. And it's not surprising because they're deep, and they're all the three of them are the kind of themes that can be explored deeper and wider. And so thank you for taking your time to work on these stories. And yeah, thank you for taking your time to share them with all of us, with the participants in this webinar. I think this was a very important and interesting hour. All of these stories were new to me, and I think they're of great importance to everyone who listened. And I hope after you continue working on them, I hope you share them with so many people, as wide as possible, because they're all extremely important and deserve to be told. So thank you so much. Thank you for this evening. I wish you great success in your storytelling, and to be in touch and constantly engage with VII, the community, and VII Insider. Thank you for being with us. And of course, thank you for everyone who attended this session. I wish you all a wonderful continuation of day or evening or night. And thank you so much once again. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.